The Middle East. It's one of the most talked about regions on Earth, a land of ancient civilizations, sacred religions, incredible wealth, and, above all, seemingly endless conflict. But to understand why wars and tension never seem to stop here, we have to go back in time. Back to a moment when the borders we see on maps today were drawn not by the people who lived there, but by powerful men in faraway rooms. For thousands of years, the Middle East was a world of empires. The Assyrians, the Persians, the Romans, and later, the great Islamic caliphates all controlled vast lands without the strict, sharp borders we know today. People moved freely, connected by shared languages, religions, and bustling trade routes. Then came the Ottoman Empire. For over 400 years, it governed much of the Middle East. The Ottomans organized their territory into provinces, but these weren't modern countries. Within these lands, Arabs, Kurds, Turks, Jews, Christians, and Muslims lived side by side. Of course, there were conflicts, but a person's identity wasn't defined by a line on a map. That all changed with World War I. As the Ottoman Empire began to crumble, European powers like Britain and France saw a massive opportunity. In 1916, two diplomats, Mark Sykes and Francois Sykes-Picot, met in secret. With maps spread across their tables, they drew straight lines through deserts they had never seen. Carving up the Middle East for themselves, those lines would become the future countries of Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon. Not a single tribal leader was consulted. No ancient religious divisions were. Respected. Communities that had coexisted for centuries were suddenly forced into new nations with old rivals. And communities that belonged together were split apart by artificial barriers. The Middle East would never be the same. The Sykes-Picot Agreement was a secret deal that would break an entire region. During the war, Britain made a series of conflicting promises to win support. To the Arabs, they promised independence if they rose up and fought against the Ottomans. To Zionist leaders, they promised support for a Jewish national home in Palestine. And to their French allies, they promised to share control of the entire region. But when the war finally ended and the Ottoman Empire was defeated, the promises to the Arabs were broken. Instead of independence, Britain and France took control for themselves, governing the new territories under a system called mandates. The Arabs felt utterly betrayed. The seeds of anger and resentment were planted deep in the soil, and they would grow for decades to come. Then, in 1948, the State of Israel was created. For Jewish people around the world, this was the fulfillment of a long-awaited dream, a safe homeland after centuries of persecution and the horrors of the Holocaust. But for the Palestinians living on that land, it marked the beginning of a profound tragedy. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were forced to flee or were expelled from their homes in what they call the Nakba, an Arabic word meaning the catastrophe. From that moment on, Israel and its neighbors have been locked in a cycle of conflict. There have been full-scale wars, uprisings known as intifadas, devastating airstrikes, and countless peace talks that have repeatedly failed. The borders were never clearly and finally defined, and that fundamental uncertainty continues to fuel violence to this day. Let's look at Iraq. The British essentially created Iraq by smashing together three completely different Ottoman provinces. In the north were the Kurds, in the center were the Sunni Arabs, and in the south were the Shia Arabs. These groups had different histories, different beliefs, and different leaders. The new borders completely ignored this reality. Over the decades, this forced union led to brutal dictatorship, rebellions, foreign invasion, and eventually, a catastrophic civil war. The U.S. invasion in 2003 removed the dictator Saddam Hussein. But it also shattered what little unity held the country together. The horrific rise of ISIS was a direct consequence of these unresolved border issues and deep-seated identity conflicts. Syria's story is tragically similar. Its borders were also drawn by outsiders, lumping together diverse communities without there. Consent when peaceful protests began in 2011 against the ruling regime. These old, simmering divisions exploded into a brutal civil war. Foreign powers poured in, backing different sides, militias, and extremist groups moved freely across the porous borders, millions of people were forced to flee their homes. Creating one of the worst humanitarian crises of our time, the Syrian conflict became a terrifying reminder that artificial borders cannot hold a nation together when trust and legitimacy collapse. And then there's the Kurdish question. The Kurds are one of the largest ethnic groups in the world without a country of their own. Their homeland is split across from modern nations: Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. Every single time new borders were drawn in the region, the Kurdish dream of an independent state was ignored. Today, Kurdish groups continue to fight for autonomy, often clashing with governments that fear losing territory. Their story is a powerful example of how lines on a map can attempt to erase an entire nation's identity and aspiration. We also can't ignore the role of oil. The Middle East sits on top of some of the world's largest oil reserves, and this incredible wealth has been both a blessing and a curse. For over a century, it has drawn constant foreign intervention. Borders are often defended not just for the people who live within them, but for the pipelines, ports, and profits they protect. Global powers choose sides based on their economic interests. Weapons flow into the region, fueling conflicts and making them last longer. So why is peace in the Middle East so difficult to achieve? It comes down to a few core problems. First, the borders don't match the identities of the people on the ground. Second, the history of the last century is filled with broken promises and deep betrayals. Third, religion, politics, land, and resources are all tangled together in an incredibly complex knot. And finally, foreign interference has never stopped. Nearly every conflict raging in the Middle East today is tied directly back to those decisions made a century ago. Here's the final truth. The Middle East is not a region that is violent by nature. Its people are the survivors of history, survivors of borders drawn without care, of promises made without honor, and of power taken without consent. Until the region's borders can reflect justice, and until its painful history is truly acknowledged by all, the conflicts of the past will continue to echo across generations. And the lines once drawn on maps will keep spilling blood on the ground. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world.